if you've just learned that your child has a hearing loss, you're probably going to have a lot of questions. The purpose of this video is to provide answers to some of the questions that may be going through your mind. Questions about what it means to have a hearing loss, what options exist for technology and communication, and what decisions have to be made right now and in the future. My name is Dr. June McCullough, and I'm a member of the California Academy of Audiology's Pediatrics Committee. Recently, the committee members developed a handbook called My Baby Has a Hearing Loss. Most of the information that I'll be talking about in this video has been taken directly from the handbook. When we wrote the handbook, it was our hope that it could be used as a starting place to learn about hearing loss and its effects on speech and language development, as well as to explain how the ear works, how audiologists diagnose and categorize hearing loss, what technologies are available for providing access to sound, and the importance of early intervention. I can't stress that enough. Research indicates that the earlier your child receives intervention for his or her hearing loss, the better the outcomes as regards language and communication skills. Our handbook includes the links that you are now seeing on your screen. Links to organizations and websites that contain resources that we hope will be useful as your family takes steps towards helping your child learn and grow. Babies use their ears, eyes, and other senses to learn about the world. By watching and listening to others, they learn that actions and sounds have meaning. They learn to use gestures and sounds to express their feelings and desires. One of the most amazing things about babies is their ability to learn their family's language. Their brains are developing rapidly, so that by about 12 months of age, most babies understand a lot of what they hear and see and begin to say a few words. This time is often called the window of opportunity for language learning. The big idea is this: babies who have been diagnosed with a hearing loss need special help right away to learn to communicate. For most children with hearing loss, the special help they need right away is hearing aids. Hearing aids amplify sound, so children will receive auditory information at a time when their brains are especially ready to learn language. When children have access to sound through their hearing aids, their speech and language can develop in a manner similar to that of their normal hearing peers. They can succeed in school and become whatever they want to be when they grow up. Their success depends on getting timely care from professionals like audiologists, speech-language pathologists, early intervention specialists, and family members like you. Right now is your window of opportunity to take action. As an audiologist, one of the most common questions that I'm asked by parents of children with hearing loss is, will the hearing loss go away? In order to answer that question, I show parents a diagram of the ear, similar to what you will find in our handbook in the section about how the ear works. The short answer goes like this. There are three parts of the ear: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The outer ear consists of the visible part of the ear, called the pinna, as well as the ear canal, which funnels sound waves down to the eardrum. The middle ear consists of the eardrum and three tiny bones behind it. Together, the eardrum and the bones vibrate and conduct sound into the inner ear. The inner ear consists of fluid-filled chambers called the cochlea, where tiny hair cells and nerve endings are situated. These hair cells and nerve fibers are stimulated by sounds, and the resulting electrical impulses are sent to the brain. When problems occur in the outer or middle ear, like an ear infection, for example, the hearing loss usually is temporary. However, when the inner ear is damaged, the hearing loss usually is permanent, which necessitates hearing aids for accessing sounds. Audiologists classify hearing losses according to how loud a sound has to be before a person is just barely able to detect it. For babies, automatic tests are done that determine how much hearing loss is present. A hearing loss can be mild, moderate, severe, or profound. Babies born with mild or moderate hearing losses typically will be able to hear most, if not all, of the sounds of speech through their hearing aids. Thus, the decision you will need to make for your child with a mild or moderate hearing loss is pretty simple, like what color you want those tiny hearing aids to be. So let's talk about hearing aids now. The big idea is this: hearing aids require careful selection and parental monitoring for optimum benefits. To achieve the best results from a hearing aid, you and your child should meet with a licensed pediatric audiologist to learn what is expected in a hearing aid, in other words, what it can and cannot do, and how to operate it. Well, how do hearing aids work? The style of hearing aid that is most appropriate for children is called behind the ear, or BTE. All BTEs have a microphone to pick up sound, a computer chip or processor to amplify the sound based on the individual child's hearing loss, like a prescription. They have a tiny loudspeaker called a receiver to send the amplified sound through the end piece called the ear mold and then into the ear. Infants as young as a few weeks can be fitted with hearing aids. However, since very young children cannot adjust their own hearing aids or tell you if they're not working, the hearing aid selected for your child must be monitored regularly by you or caregivers. As your child grows and develops and can participate in more sophisticated tests, hearing aids are adjusted accordingly. And as a child grows, his or her ear grows too. That means that the ear mold piece will need to be remade on a regular basis. In educational and home settings, children frequently connect their hearing aids to other devices, like a classroom PA system. Therefore, the hearing aid that is prescribed should have special features that will allow for this connection. Although most babies with hearing loss can use hearing aids to access sounds, if your baby has been diagnosed with a severe hearing loss or profound deafness, hearing aids are not sufficient for hearing speech. Deafness changes the picture. Parents of children who are born deaf must quickly make a decision about how their child will communicate, which often goes hand in hand with the corresponding educational program. For deaf kids, there are two main communication approaches. The majority of families of children who are profoundly deaf in both ears will choose either a manual or sign language approach or an auditory or listening and speaking approach. A third approach combines the two for communication and learning, and our handbook describes the options in some detail. Here's the short version. In the American Sign Language, or ASL approach, a child learns sign language as his or her first language for communication and later learns written English in school for reading and writing. ASL is the language of individuals in the deaf community, and it has a different grammar than English. Typically, in order for a child to become fluent in ASL, he or she will need language models who are fluent in ASL. Children who use ASL to communicate may attend special schools for deaf children, or they may choose to attend a regular classroom with a sign language interpreter who will interpret what the teacher and the other children are saying. The second communication option is known as listening and spoken language. In this approach, a deaf child uses hearing for communication and learning. Since hearing aids generally are not sufficient for hearing speech, this approach relies on the use of cochlear implants to provide access to sound. The goal of a cochlear implant is to allow a child to enter the mainstream educational classroom as early as possible, typically by kindergarten, and use listening and speaking to learn and communicate with normal hearing peers. So what is a cochlear implant? And how is it different than a hearing aid? A cochlear implant is a type of surgically implanted hearing technology that is designed to bypass the broken hair cells in the inner ear and directly stimulate the nerve fibers in the cochlea that remain intact. There are two parts to a cochlear implant: the external portion that looks like a hearing aid and sits behind the ear, and a second portion that is surgically placed inside the cochlea in a short operation. The external portion consists of a microphone, which picks up sound from the environment, a speech processor which analyzes the important features of the incoming sound, and a transmitter-receiver that sends information about the important features of speech to an electrode array that is inserted into the cochlea. When the tiny electrodes pass electricity to the nerve fibers, the result is the neural transmission of sound from the ear to the brain. Your audiologist will help you determine if your child is a candidate for a cochlear implant. Our handbook lists the current guidelines that are used to determine candidacy for cochlear implantation. Your child may be a candidate for a cochlear implant if he or she has severe to profound permanent hearing loss in both ears, receives little or no benefit from hearing aids, has no contraindications preventing surgery, and has access to appropriate education and rehabilitation follow-up. In order for a cochlear implant to be effective, it must be done in the first year or two of a baby's life. A hybrid educational option exists for children with severe hearing losses or deafness that is known as total communication. In this approach, a child uses hearing aids or cochlear implants for accessing sound information and also has sign language support as needed for communication and learning. Note that not all educational programs are available in every community. Our handbook lists some factors to consider when choosing a communication option. Here are a few things to think about. Which of the options will enable you and your family members to communicate with your child? Which of the options is in the best interests of your child? Remember, you need to decide what communication option is right for your child and your family. I encourage you to read about the different options and talk with professionals and other parents. You should visit early intervention programs and watch how other children, teachers, and parents communicate. Whichever language and educational option you choose for your child, your commitment to that decision is essential. The skills you learn and commitment you make to use those skills every day will be the key to your child's success. If you find that one approach is not working for your child or family, you are encouraged to talk with your audiologist about other possibilities to consider. you have the right and the responsibility to reevaluate your child's progress and request changes when they are appropriate. Each child is unique. The big idea is this: children with mild or moderate hearing losses typically use hearing aids to access sound and thus develop their speech and language. Children with severe or profound hearing losses may use cochlear implants to access sound with the goal of using speech to communicate, or they may use sign language to communicate. Either way, the window of opportunity is only open for a short time, so decisions must be made as quickly as possible so that the designated intervention can get started. Speaking of starting early, do you know about Early Start? Early Start is California's system of early intervention services for infants and toddlers with disabilities and their families. It is a multi-agency effort funded and sponsored by the Department of Developmental Services and the California Department of Education. The statewide system is accessed through regional centers for developmental disabilities, county offices of education, local school districts, health or social service agencies, and family resource centers, FRCs, in your community. The FRCs provide parent-to-parent contact, information about disabilities and early intervention, and assistance in accessing services. Phone contact, home or hospital visits, and support groups are all ways in which families might connect with experienced and knowledgeable parent peers through their local FRC. Early intervention services are provided based on the developmental needs of the child, the concerns and priorities of the family, and the resources available to them. Services are provided within the context of the child's and family's daily activities and routines. Our handbook includes a comprehensive list of the services that are offered through Early Start. The short list includes assistive technology, including devices like hearing aids or audiological services, family training, counseling and home visits, health services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, social work services, and speech and language services. Early Start services are provided at no cost to eligible families. The big idea is this: early intervention services provide families with the information and support they need to maximize their child's overall development. For more information, go to the Early Start website or call the Early Start phone number. I hope this information has been helpful in getting you started on your journey as the parent of a child with a hearing loss. The final big idea is this: your child's pediatric audiologist is the person most qualified by training and experience to provide you with information about hearing loss and the best technology and intervention approaches to meet your child's needs and your family's goals.